Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Dimensions and Text webinar. My name is Nick, and I'll be doing the presentation for you today. At the conclusion of the webinar, I will be sending out a PDF that covers everything that we have talked about today. And if you do have any questions at any point during the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and enter those into the questions section. And at the end of the class, I'll go through and answer any questions that may have come up. The first thing I want to do is I want to go over a quick lesson overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to look at going through the text and dimensions to your model, and then using worksheets to add in those tools that are available in Envisioneer. So some of the topics that we're going to cover are your dimension settings, adding in dimensions, adding in text, and then adding in roof text. So first we're going to look at dimensions. There are a number of dimension tools and dimension settings to accomplish quick and easy annotations of your drawing sets. The dimension settings. Before inserting any views of your model onto a worksheet, you want to take advantage of the automated dimensioning tools found in your model view. Many settings available will aid you in matching your current office standards for dimensioning. And to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to your settings, and you're going to select the Document Settings option. And under Document Settings, you're going to see down at the bottom here, there are two options, Dimension Auto Exterior and Dimension Auto Interior. We're going to first click on the Dimension Auto Exterior, and it's going to bring up a panel on the right-hand side of that dialog, which allows you to go through and make adjustments to different settings. So in the Include Dimension String 4, this is going to allow you to control what is actually being dimensioned in your model. So we have our overall, our projections, our openings, interior walls, and angled walls. And if you take a look at this little diagram here, it gives you a good idea of what we're actually talking about here. So your overalls would be from one end of the wall to the other end of the wall, even if there is a jog in that actual wall assembly. This overall would be one giant dimension that dimensions the entire overall length of that project. Your projections would be any kind of a step in that design. So like this would be a projection. Your openings would be any kind of a window or door or opening in your wall, and you can control your dimensioning to that actual opening. And then your interior walls, you can actually dimension to where an interior wall intersects your exterior wall. That way you can show where your interior walls are breaking that exterior wall on the exterior side of your design. And then you can also add in a dimension option for any angled walls that you have. The dimension line spacing distances, basically it just gives you an area to specify how far you want those dimension lines to be from each other, from the model itself, and then from each other once you've added in your overall and projection dimensions. The extension line options are again going to be an office standard, so depending on how you want those to be displayed on your drawing area, you can have them so that they actually extend right to the corner of your design, or you can have them break along an invisible horizontal or vertical line, so they actually terminate, and it just doesn't add that extra clutter of intersecting lines in your design. Again, preference, you have that option to choose. Openings is going to be another office standard that depends on where you are. You can actually dimension right to your center of your opening, or you can actually dimension the opening itself. And again, as long as you have this openings option checked, it'll allow you to make that adjustment. If you do not have openings checked, it becomes grayed out. So again, if you want to dimension your openings, make sure it's checked, and then decide on the style that you want. The end condition option allows you to basically choose how you want to, or where you want to dimension to. So you can actually dimension right to the surface of your veneer. So that's going to be your brick or stucco or siding. If you're not doing that, you only want to dimension right to the frame or the stud, then you could actually select the core option. Or if you want to dimension to the center of the wall, you could select the core center, and you would uncheck the other options. You could leave them all selected if you want, but that's going to add quite a bit of extra dimensions. It's going to make it look cluttered. So again, preference or office standard is what's going to take precedent here, and just make sure that you make that adjustment in this document. And then if you have interior walls selected, this option here will highlight, and you can actually specify how you want your interior walls to be dimensioned on your exterior side. The auto interior dimensions is going to look similar to the one that we just saw on the auto exterior. but it's going to ask you, when you're dimensioning your interior walls, what do you want to actually be dimensioned? So you can actually say, I want to go from my core to, or sorry, my edge to my edge, or surface to surface, or I can say right to the center of the wall. This ignore wall dimensions tool or checkbox, what this basically tells you is, if I'm running along a segment of walls, I don't need to show the 4.5 or 5.5 inch thick dimension every single time because they're going to be typical walls. You can actually just check this option and it will automatically remove that wall thickness dimension every time, so you don't actually see it in your drawing anymore. And I'll leave that checked for right now, and we'll say OK. Sorry, apply and then OK. Next, we're going to look at adding in our automatic dimensions. So now that we have our settings set up, the Auto Exterior Dimensions tool will now automatically dimension the exterior walls of our design. So by default, the 3 dimension strings are created, one for your openings, one for your wall segments, and one for your overall dimension for each side of the model, which is what we set up in our document settings. So to create these dimensions, we're going to go up to Tools, Dimensions, and we're going to select the Auto Exterior Dimensions option. And as you can see, it automatically adds in all of my dimensions for me. So I said I wanted to have my overall, my projections, and my openings all dimensioned. So I'm seeing my overall, my projections, and my openings all being displayed on my model view here. The Auto Interior Dimension tool works a little bit differently. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back up to Tools, Dimensions, and we're going to select the Auto Interior Dimensions. So it's not as auto as the auto exterior ones are. This one we actually have to specify where we want those dimensions to be. So from here, what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to actually select left click once, move my mouse across my design, and left click again. And you can see that it automatically found that and added it in. So I'm getting 2 dimensions just by drawing in 1 line. Going back up to settings, document settings, just to show you what I mean by this. So if I turn off this ignore wall dimensions, they apply and then OK, and I draw that exact same dimension line again, auto interior, and I go across my drawing, and now I'm getting the 8.5, the 4.5, and the 8.5 again. It just adds extra clutter to your design, but if you need to show it, you can. But if you need to show it at least once, you can do that, and then you can actually go in and select the other dimensions that are in there and just delete them out. And I'll show you another option as we get further on, but we're just going to delete out all of this. I'm just going to go undo, Control Z, just to get rid of that auto interior dimension string. So next, we're going to look at creating room dimensions. So using the room dimensions tool, you can quickly calculate the dimensions of a room and insert the dimensions on your plan. So to create your room of dimensions, you're going to go up and you're going to select Tools, Dimensions, and then we're going to select Room Dimensions. We're then going to specify the room that we want to dimension, and we're going to do the garage here. So I'm going to zoom in on this garage area, and you're going to pick one corner to the other corner, and then down to create that box. And I'm just going to zoom in on that corner and left click. Once you left click that 3rd point, it's going to ask you, it's going to bring up that room dimensions dialog. It's going to ask you to modify the text if you want to, and then how do you want that to actually be labeled? Do you want that to be width times length or length times width? I'm just going to clean this up so I don't need to see the actual breakdown of the fractions. I just want to see the full numbers here. So I'm just going to say 24 foot 10 inches by 19 foot 4 inches. I want that to be width times length, and I want my dimension style to be using the standard dimension style or text style. And if you want to change that, you can simply click on that button, and you can now specify a new style or add in your own. I'm just going to say standard and say OK, and then OK. Now in the middle, we have our room dimension of 24 feet 10 inches by 19 foot 4 inches. And you can continue doing that for each room by just clicking on those and adding in those dimensions. So next, we're going to look at adding in a linear dimension. So the automated dimension tools will dimension walls, but if you need to dimension to another object like a cabinet, you can insert a linear dimension. Linear dimensions can be added using, linear dimensions can be added in either model view or in a worksheet view. And to do that, what you're going to do, you're going to go up to Tools, and we're just going to add in a cabinet. Click here. We can see what we're going to dimension to. We're going to go up to Tools, Dimensions, and we're going to select Linear Dimension. And let's say I want to know how far from this corner this cabinet is. I would specify my first point, move my mouse across to specify my second point, so that's the actual distance. And then I'm actually going to add in how far back I want that dimension line to be. And I can specify and just left click to click that or to add in that dimension. So I now know that that cabinet is 13 foot 8 inches away. There are a couple of other dimension tools that we can use, and once you get into your working drawing sheets, you can do this in both model or working drawing sheets. I'm just going to quickly jump over to a floor plan here just to show you the other options. So I've quickly drawn in a couple of different shapes here, and I've added in a linear dimension. If I go up to Tools, Dimensions, I have an option called Continuous. And if I select this this first dimension, it's now going to allow me to continue that dimension to add in my other dimensions. That's what the continuous dimension does. It adds on based on that first dimension that you have selected. I can also use the overall dimension tool, which again is going to specify, I have to specify where I want that first, how far I want it to offset away from the dimension. I'm just going to pick a point above my dimension line, and then I'm going to select my dimension, and it's going to add in that new dimension for me above that line. I'm going to go up to, the overall dimension is going to be here. So I'm going to select this point here, and then I'm going to select my multiple lines, and then it's going to create that overall for me. This dimension here, if I want to go into dimensions and I want to do, baseline, I again select that dimension, and it's going to create a baseline dimension off of that first point. So since this was my first click of that dimension, that's where it's taking its base from. Again, I'll just delete that out and show you how to do that again. So if I add in a linear dimension from here to here, and then I go to Tools, Dimensions, and I select Baseline Dimension. I select the dimension that I want to create the baseline from, and I'm able to add that in. And again, from that first point that I selected is where it starts, and then I just specify my next point. And it will keep going until you say right-click and finish. So those are just some other dimensioning tools that you can use and take advantage of in either your model or your worksheet views. Next, we're going to look at text tools. So text can be added in either your model or your worksheet space to annotate the plan of the model. The elevation, sections, details, and your 3D views must have text added once the view is inserted on a worksheet. For the purposes of so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go in and we're going to go to text, and we're going to say the tools, text, and text. So we're going to go to tools, text, and we're going to click text. This is going to bring up the text dialog box. So in this dialog box, the main window is a text editor where you can type your custom notes, or you can import a TXT or RTF saved text file. Or you can double click on one of the predefined labels at the right of the dialog box to automatically add them to your text editor window. From here, I can go in and I can specify the text style. So we're using dimensions. I can double click on the kitchen and it'll automatically add the word kitchen in here. And if I click the multiple text insert option, it will allow me to multiple insert text. If I want this to be my kitchen, once I left click to place that in, it's going to bring this text dialog back up. And then all I have to do is double click on the next one, say living room, say OK, and we'll place that in. Or I can just simply go in and type in my own information if I want it to be something other than what's in our predefined area. And I'll say garage, and I'll say OK. And I can place the word garage in here. And then I can go in and say foyer and place foyer in. And once I'm done, I can just simply click cancel, and I've added in the text that I need for that area. We also have a feature called Descriptive Text. And this adds text in based on what you have inserted into your drawing. So we're going to use the, we're going to go into our worksheet view. And I'm going to quickly add in an elevation. So I'm going to go up to my elevation, and I'm going to say, I will add in a floor plan first. We'll say insert, and we'll drop in our floor plan. When I zoom in on this floor plan, I can go up to Tools, Text, and we have a text option here called Description. Or we can use the Leaders option and have a text or a leader with text, a description with a leader. And we click on anything in our drawing. Let's say we want to click on our wall, and then we specify the insertion points. It'll come up and say, you're adding in a 2x4 brick wall. So whatever object I have selected, it will find that description for me and add that text in. So if I want to do the same for my interior wall here, I would go back up to Tools, Leaders, Description with Leader, select the wall, and turn off ortho this time, so that way I'm able to draw on an angle. I'm going to click on the wall, and as you can see, it's now pulling up that 2x4 interior wall option. I can also go in and add in my own text if I wanted to as well. I can simply select text and then type in text if I wanted to, or I can just do a description and then select an object, and that's going to bring up a 16-foot by 7-foot garage door. So you can use the text description or the text leader description option to quickly annotate your design based on what you've included in your model. Next, we're going to look at elevation datum lines. I'm going to go over to my elevations tab. I'm already on the elevations tab. I'm just going to quickly delete this out. And I'm going to add in an elevation. So define Smart View. I'm going to click on the elevations tab. And again, zooming out just a little bit. And then on the left-hand side, we have our datum lines. So do we want to include our datum lines? We're going to say yes. We want to include the ground level. We want to include the wall height. We'll say floor level. And I only want to show for my ground floor. And then under settings, it's going to give you the ability to adjust how this datum line is going to look. So it's going to be on the CAD layer. The datum marks, you're going to have it positioned so you can do both sides. The datum block is going to be using a block called a datum marker. Your leader lines are going to be on both sides with a length of 5 foot, which is basically the extension past your model. The color is going to be red. We're going to have a line type and a line weight specified. The datum lines themselves, we want the display to be on with the extension of 1 foot and a color of red. And again, controlling the actual line type and the line weight. And then we can control how that text is going to be displayed as well. So we want that to be above right for the description. The elevation is going to be below right, so that's the height. The style is going to be our dimension style. And then our alignment is going to be centered along that datum line. So when I say OK, and I say insert, attached to my cursor is that elevation with our datum lines. So again, with those settings, that's my datum marker on both sides. I have that 5-foot extension off of the one side, and I have my measurement and my name centered along the datum line itself. Next, we're going to look at the roof slope marker tool. So a roof symbol indicates the slope of a roof. When inserting a roof symbol, you first define its properties, then you can click to insert it on your worksheet. So in our worksheet, you're going to go up to Draw, Details, and Roof Symbol. So Draw, Details, Roof Symbol. In the roof slope symbol dialog, we're going to specify the properties we want of the slope type. So you can select the method for displaying the slope. Do you want that to be the rise over run, or do you want that to be, what rise over run do you want to show? And we're going to say we want that to be our in 12, so we want that to be 6, because we know that our roof is a 6 and 12 slope. Our appearance, again, is going to be what text style do we want to use, which we're basically using dimensions as our default. We're going to specify our length and our alignment to the left. And we say OK. And with that left aligned, you can see that our cursor now shows on the left-hand side. So when I click on that, it shows me my roof slope symbol. I can adjust it again, so I just go back to right-click and say Repeat, and that will bring up my roof slope tool. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to say I want this to be 1 foot 6 inches wide. And then I want this to be on the right side this time. And you can see that it's a little bit bigger now, so it's a little bit more visible on my screen. And I just place it in. So that takes care of everything I wanted to show you based on our text and our dimensions. So I'm going to open up the question section of the webinar now. If you please have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in, and I'll do my best to adjust those for you. So the question is there a way to automatically get square footage of a specific room? Yes. So what you can do here is, if I go back into my model view, I can go up to Tools, Analyze. We have an area perimeter option, and you can specify the area or perimeter of the model itself. Or you can go into Tools, Analyze, Schedules, and we're going to select our room region by room option. And we're going to call this garage. And I don't need the volume. I just want the area and the perimeter. And then I say OK. And when I click on that, it'll automatically add that in for me. So now I can see that garage information there. And then when I go up to my Tools, Analyze, Area Perimeter, I now have a garage option in here that I can add or omit depending on how I want my total area or perimeter calculation to be for that entire model. So once you add in all your areas for all your rooms, you can add and remove them from the total square footage of the house. And like I did mention, I will be also sending out a PDF at the end of the class, so that way you have this documentation of what we covered today, so that you can revisit it at your own time and touch back on anything that you need a little bit of help with. And if you do have any questions after the webinar is over, you can contact our support department as well, and they'll be able to give you a hand as well. So I'll leave the questions section open for a bit longer, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in. So I'll leave this open for about another couple minutes. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to take advantage of this time together and enter those in, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending today. Like I said, I will be sending out a PDF that has everything that we've covered today. And if you do have any questions, please just go ahead and contact our support department, and they'll be able to give you a hand with any questions that you have as well. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.